So yeah, my great grandpa, when he started farming, he farmed with horses. And when he died in like 2007, we were using GPS. So just
what a journey.
Yes, astronomically fast.
Yeah.
And if you want to take the Peter's Ion part of it, it's industrial revolution, you know,
yes.
or like the urbanization. There's like a line in a poem that's like the fascination with what is difficult. And like for me, a lot of that nails me to the T, like in a lot of ways. Like no one just like, oh man, lifting that rock would be really cool. It's like no one does that. But I'm like, man, that is so heavy and like you have to be strong. That's hard. I want to do it.
Right. That'd be an accomplishment.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like next week, my brother-in-law Taylor is doing like his 3rd or 4th or something like that, 100-mile race. And like I think that is so cool. But like not my build, not my body type. I can't play in that. Pond.
You can lift stones.
I might be able to lift stones, but I can't run 100 miles. But like that is just so cool to me because it's something hard. Like I don't know, we don't have enough hard things or don't give enough credit for that type of thing, in my opinion.
The news is a wild place.
Yeah, I'm awful about the news. I used to be really good. Like when I was at Central, I was pretty good because you had New York or the Register, Wall Street Journal. I mean, you had that stuff all readily available to you, and it's almost wasted on college students just because like they don't know to appreciate it yet, or at least I didn't. Like that's general statement that doesn't cover everybody. But like now I'm like, man, I wish that just showed up for free
right.
every day.
Right.
But no, starting in college, I felt like I paid a lot more attention to what was going on in the world. And that was when the Crimea was annexed and the United States sent like a patrol like into the Black Sea for like the first time in like forever. Like it was a big deal. And just like, I couldn't understand, like, why doesn't anybody else think this is a big deal? And I don't know. But then between like the 2020 presidential election, like I just fell off of the news. And it's not necessarily for like the reasons that people would think, I don't think, for why I dropped off, but it just became so politicized. And like, I don't care. It wasn't because I didn't necessarily feel like my side was being represented or however. It just became garbage in my opinion. Everything was politicized. Like facts were politicized, and it's just like, this is not doing me any good. I'm not becoming any better informed, and it's just like I don't need the rhetoric to be able to argue, and I've really fallen off from that, which is not a good thing, but like I haven't found anything else. Like I've tried, like since then, like I used to listen, like I explicitly listen to sources that don't confirm or conform to my political opinions, and it's just I can't listen to it. But I also can't listen to quote unquote my side because it's equally as bad. It's just in this, and it's just like I've not found that sweet spot back for me.
That's why I think podcasts are so popular right now, because you get what happened without all the other stuff. You get an authentic, real dialogue with an expert broken down over 20, 30, 40 an hour, or in Joe Rogan's case, 3 hours, you know, where you take a subject matter expert and you say, let's really get into this. And you learn a lot more, I feel like, than the news. I don't know, maybe you get informed, but did you learn anything necessarily? I mean, maybe. Yeah, maybe.
See, and this is my biggest problem with the news. Agriculture is something that I would say I understand more than the average person. Obviously, I'm in agriculture. I farm. I row crop. I have hog barns. I have some cattle, and like my family has a fairly long history in the area with agriculture. I would also not say I'm an expert in agriculture because I know just how much I don't know. Like my agronomy, that is not where I flourish.
Sure.
But then when I hear something like on the news and I hear them reporting as fact, and I know that is blatantly wrong, I'm like, wow, in Iowa we are blatantly misinforming the public on agriculture, which is like a huge part of our economy, especially in Iowa. It's just like, so now I'm going to believe you when you talk about like nuclear physicists. Like if you are botching this, how can I trust you to be 100% in any direction? So like a lot of this came out like with water quality. When that lawsuit went through, I was an intern at the Iowa Agriculture Water Alliance, which is housed in the Iowa, or at least was, I think it still is, housed in the Iowa Soybean Association. It was created by Iowa soybean, Iowa corn, pork. I'm probably missing something or somebody. But that was before the lawsuit, and it was to address water quality specifically because Iowa has like the Iowa Nutrient Reduction Strategy.
Is that new? Is this new?
No,
this is...
Iowa Nutrient Reduction Strategy is not new. It's pre-lawsuit.
Pre-lawsuit. When was the lawsuit? When did that come out?
That would have been around 15.
Okay.
If I remember right.
2015.
Yep. And
it was about, the lawsuit was about how the water was worse than what we were being told?
No, the lawsuit was Des Moines Water Works was, obviously you'll know my opinion because I'll use the word complaining about the water quality being sent to them upriver from the Raccoon. So like specifically they were, if I remember right, they were suing like water districts or drainage districts, and like Calhoun County was like in one of them. I don't think Greene actually was, which is also ridiculous if you like realize how water drains. But the whole thing was, and what bothered me so much about it is we have in agriculture, like specifically in Iowa, we have made like huge improvements, but it's not good enough. And I mean, I will agree, it is not good enough. But like suing to get your way, Iowa has like the biggest nutrient or nitrogen removal plant, like I think in the world, or like it's right up there. Maybe it's not the world, or at least it was, but like it's old. Like it needs it. And okay, the other thing too is how big was Ankeny 50 years ago?
Not that big.
How big was Waukee or Johnston?
Small.
I mean, you know, so you had that, but now you're servicing those areas, and then I mean, it is just smoked the capacity. And when's the last time you heard anything about the nitrates in the water?
Ooh, it's been a minute.
It's been a couple years.
Sure.
What have we had over the past couple years as far as rainfall?
Not a lot of it.
Not a lot of rainfall. So all the nitrates are stuck because they need flushed out through the system. So as soon as we get water going, like if we get a regular precipitation or above regular precipitation, or average, not regular, you'll hear everybody freaking out again.
Because the nitrates will start flowing again.
Yep, because they are already there. They're just stuck. I mean, they can't move by themselves. They'll be flushed out with the system with water.
So is it in the plant, or it's in...
Right now, you're talking probably like in the soil profile.
It's in the soil.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Locked up, and it'll dissolve in the water. It'll get in the water.
Yes.
And the water will wash it out. It'll go to the plant, and then that's
when it'll go to the Raccoon. The Raccoon, they'll take water out of it. And now, if I remember right, Des Moines Water Works no longer does this. But at the time where they sued, you know what they did with all the nitrates that they pulled out of the water, which are unsafe for human consumption?
Where'd they put it?
They dumped it right back in the river.
Ooh, okay.
Hot, calling the kettle black.
Sure.
Because we don't have the ability to take it out. They did, and they said, "Well, this is just the regulation." So, and they've since changed that.
Sure.
But it's just like, are you serious right now? I mean, to me, it was very frustrating too, because like I am all about improving water quality. Mm-hmm. My farming operation has been very much, most people would say like environmentally focused. My grandpa Roy specifically like really started that, and it's like, if you take care of the soil, the water will take care of itself. We're no-till, strip-till operation, so we leave the ground alone as much as we can.
Which, for the sake of the people, we should almost spend a minute introducing you before we get into all these
Sure, no problem.
Jolly good topics, because you were educating me the other day on strip-till and no-till and why people would do either or, and cover crop now is a big deal. And
Yep.
And so, first of all, you're Schyler Bardole.
I am Schyler Bardole, yes.
Lindsay, say what up.
Hi.
Lindsay's running the show over there. Schyler is from Rippey.
Originally from Rippey, living in Sheridan right now.
spent some time going to East Green High School.
Yes, sir.
Yep. Went from there to Central College.
Yes, sir.
Go Dutch. That's where I went. Scott and I were there at the same time. We had some overlapping years. And then went from there. And then did you come straight back to Sheridan from Central?
I did, actually. Yes.
Married a not a high school sweetheart because you didn't start dating until
actually, yeah, barely high school sweetheart.
barely,
Yeah.
like right at the end.
Yep.
She was in college. You were a senior.
I was a sophomore when I started talking to her as a senior.
Lauren.
She was a senior. Yeah.
She went to She went to Simpson.
She went to Simpson.
We won't hold that against her.
Yeah, I do sometimes. It's all right.
It's fun to play into the rivalry right there at Simpson Storm. That's good. Got married, came home, and you have farming in your family, like your decades. You farm with your dad and your grandpa and your uncle.
Correct.
Yep. So, and then, the farm didn't start with your grandpa. The land's been in your family for beyond.
Yes.
Is it a century farm? Is that what we call it?
Yes, it is a century farm. We are closer to a heritage farm than a century farm.
What does that mean?
150 years.
Ooh.
So, it's okay. Me, my dad, my grandpa. There's 3 generations. My grandpa, his dad, my great grandpa was Paul. And I was lucky enough to know him as much as like a kid can.
For sure. Your great grandpa.
My great grandpa.
Yeah.
Yep. And then his dad was Nate or Nathan. And then there was Bill or William. So granddad Bill is what grandpa always says. So I'm a 6th generation
Crazy
farmer. The farm that they bought, the neighbors came to them or us, I guess, past tense before me, and said, hey, love to have you as a neighbor, but you bought a worn out farm. And what they meant by that is then there was no tile. You could only farm the hilltops. Well, the hilltops were plowed to oblivion because of erosion. And then the lower ground was like a slough, which is like it's swamp is what most people would call it, but like it's a slough.
Sure.
Just a wet spot. You could not farm it.
It just doesn't.
It's
drain.
good for duck hunting, but not for farming.
It's good for duck hunting, not for farming.
Right on.
So that's part of, I guess, where the environmental or dirt thing, like if you want to like truly trace it back to like its genesis with us, and that's part of the reason why. The farm that I farm, it's Lauren's family Century Farm, where we live north of Sheridan in Adaiza.
The great metro.
That's right.
The once great metro.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. What was the Adaiza's claim to fame? Was it like coal or some industry or?
Actually, it was a pop-up town like between Sheridan and Lorville, if I remember right. There was an elevator there. It was called Cottonwood, but the engineer that went through on the train would always say like, well, here's Cottonwood, ain't she a daisy? So then they changed it to Adaiza.
Well, there you go. You never know when you're going to coin something that's going to be locked in history forever.
Sticks. Yeah.
So the land you're talking about is your land where you live north of Sheridan, or this is your family heritage land over by Rippey?
The one by Rippey
right
is the one that I'm talking about right now. But like I can see the same issue in the farm that we have here. So I just put in a prairie strip, which is part of a CRP program. So pretty much instead of farming an area, I planted native stuff that FSA from the USDA, United States Department of Agriculture, FSA, Farm Services Agency. So I planted these native grasses in this strip, and it looks like a big Y. It's like 4.5 acres of my farm, but it's sand. Like it's sand, gravel. There's nothing there. I farm it. I lose money on it every year. Doesn't matter if it's corn or beans. That nothing grows.
Yep.
And it's because it got plowed to oblivion, because that's the best that we knew how to farm at the time.
In the agricultural age, when we started growing food like crazy.
Yeah. Well, and that the hilltops is what would be farmed first, because when you had no tile, you had no water management at all, you did what you could. And we're
talking like 1900 or like
we're talking like 18
19.
Lauren's family Century Farm was in the 1890s.
A horse.
So
plow.
Horse. So my great grandpa, when he started farming, he farmed with horses. Mm-hmm. And when he died in like 2007, we were using GPS. So just
what a journey.
Yes, astronomically fast.
Yeah.
And if you want to take the Peters Ion part of it, it's industrial revolution,
Yes.
or like the urbanization.
Yes.
But I guess to sneak back to the water quality part, so like in it had been around 93, I think we started doing strip till, if I remember right. I might be off 5 years or so.
Because normally when you plant crops, you lose that top soil portion.
See, you're not guaranteed to lose it, but you're loosening it up.
You're loosening it up.
The wind blows.
And
it rains.
Which means it washes away to some degree.
Correct. Yep.
It moves. Soil moves.
It moves. And it still moves even the way that we farm. So I always say I can't hide it. So there's a spot that I farm that's been I started in farming it in 2017. I have spots where now, like it's between two hills, like there's a bump when I go across. It was never there before. And if I cultivated, I would never know that it's there. But all that is water erosion. And like, so I've been farming it since 2017 and I've lost at least this, or more.
Yep.
But I can't, I say I can't. I don't hide it because I'm no-till. I can't just like smooth it out, right? Sure. So that's a spot where I will have to put a waterway. And all that is a grass strip to help hold the dirt where it's at.
Okay. And that'll be grass for the rest of time or as long as you're farming.
It'll be grass as forever's a long time, I guess, is what I would say. But it will always be an area where I have to be conscious and manage it well. Sure. I guess is what I would describe it as.
Right on.
So, but yeah, with doing the no-till strip till deal, and also like I'm definitely not knocking anybody who does tillage, because I believe that you should be able to do whatever you want or however you should be able to farm the best way that you know how. I think this is the best. I would argue that it's the best, but I'm not telling you do it or else, because I that's just not where I'm at.
No
I think
condemnation for different farming strategies.
Yes. But by farming the way that we do, I know we have more earthworms.
Earthworms are good.
Earthworms are good
because they put nutrients back in the soil.
Yeah, well, and it's also kind of like a marker for like a healthy soil is what I would say. And this is where my agronomy and stuff is definitely weaker. But I know since we don't till, like all the corn that we just harvested, all those stalks and all that organic material is still in the field. We will plant beans next year. And I don't know, July or something like that, I'll walk out there, you won't be able to find a stalk.
And you left it. You didn't do anything.
We didn't do anything.
You left
Earthworms
it there. Yep.
pulled it down. Like, or after beans, and you have a cornfield, it's probably easier to see. The rows are totally clean. The earthworms actually start taking the bottom leaf of the corn and start pulling it down their hole, because they got to have something to eat. So, and then that's what's left. But so like we build really good soil structure. And when you have good soil structure, you have good organic matter. When you have good organic matter, there's nitrogen in that, but it also helps to, the saturation point is much higher. So you get a 4-inch rain, let's say, I will be able to hold more of that in the soil than somebody who does not. Whether that shows up in a pond or it runs off or whatever, I will physically be able to hold more. So in a wet year, it's better because I can hold more before I pond. In a dry year, it's better because I can hold more. So when it starts to get depleted,
sure,
I'll have more moisture or subsoil moisture for the plant to be able to use.
Give yourself a shot.
Yes.
To have a good yield.
Correct.
Yeah.
And then to wrap that back up into water quality, when you have good soil structure, you have good organic matter, you're holding more water and everything else. And then, I mean, they just go hand in hand. And like we get really worked up too about the hypoxia zone there in the Gulf. And like what we don't talk about is it's always been there.
The hypoxia zone.
Hypoxia. I'm saying the wrong word. Pretty much, it's where there's so much nitrogen and stuff in the water, it takes the oxygen out, so no fish can be in there.
Where is it? The Gulf, like Gulf of Mexico?
In the Gulf of Mexico, yeah. Okay. So follow like the Mississippi and stuff down. There's like this area where like no fish can. There's no oxygen in the water. They can't breathe. Whoa. I'm not saying that's not a problem. I'm not saying it's not a big deal, but it's just like. You're looking at this when you should be looking at this.
Sure.
First of all, it's to some degree, it's been there for a long time. Yeah. So it's not a new phenomenon. But the other thing that we like choose not to think about is the way that a river flows naturally, it'll have floodplains. We've like taken out all the floodplains. So when you have a floodplain, the water comes out, it disperses, and then it can deposit silt and stuff, which is really high in nitrogen and stuff like that. But we've taken out all the floodplains.
On purpose.
On purpose. New Orleans, for example.
There's no floodplains down there.
No, you don't want it to flood down there. In fact, when it floods, a lot of people die, and it's a bad deal.
Okay.
I was going to say, 2008 Cedar Rapids, they're like 100-year and like 500-year floodplains flooded at the same time. Mm-hmm. And that's why Cedar Rapids got dunked.
Yeah.
Got dunked. Okay. Yeah. But we don't want floodplains.
Well,
or we do want floodplains.
What's your goal? What's your goal?
People not to die.
Let's start
with there.
You want to be able to have levees and create and control the water,
which is not a floodplain.
Because
floodplain is simply where the water goes when there's too much.
Yes.
Yes.
So like even if you go like down like Squirrel Hollow area, like here in Greene County, depending on which way you're coming from it, if you are on the west side of the river, you can look up and it looks like you're just straight up, or you're on the bottom and then like a mile away straight uphill, and it's way higher. Well, all you are in is where like the river has ran before. Sure. So it's been eroded down. It's low. Mm-hmm. So where do you think water goes when the river gets out of its bank? It goes in that low area. It's a floodplain. It might be 1,000-year floodplain, right, or whatever. But
it's 1,000 years old, or
flooding events or like rain events and stuff, they'll say it's a 100-year flood, and pretty much what that means, the probability that this amount of flooding or rain happens is about once every 100 years. So like a 500-year flood is like, man, this only happens about every 500 years. So I guess when you have a 500-year flood, you're also getting your 50, 100, right, 150,
getting
250.
All that.
Yeah. So all that is saying is that like that's where the water would naturally go without man intervention. New Orleans, in my uneducated opinion, really should not be there. It's in a horrible spot.
But below seawater, right?
Yes.
There's only a few. Isn't Miami in the same boat? Like we're using
Miami might be. I'm not sure.
New Orleans is like the lowest point in America. You could probably fact check that too, just to make sure. But
the point being, we're complaining about the hypoxia zone where there's no oxygen in the water, and we're blaming it specifically on agriculture, which is also crap. And like that's not We've totally changed the system, but it's only this one part that's the problem. Because the other thing I would say, like people, not two people in Des Moines, but like talking about the Des Moines lawsuit and be like, okay, so how much water do you soak up when it falls in your drive, in your sidewalk, on your house, on your roads, on the interstate? How much water soaks in concrete?
Not a lot.
Zero. Nothing soaks. We're also taking this huge flush of water that should have been able to soak in somewhere and just funneling it directly in. And people use the same logic to complain about tile or to disagree with tile. But tile doesn't take anything away that would not be soaked in. So water actually will not tile is like a pipe in the ground that water can seep into. If the water,
a pipe with holes.
A pipe with holes, yeah.
Solid on the bottom, but...
So a lot of them are just perforated.
Sure.
And so then you cover it with dirt. But the thing is, if you dump water on it and the dirt can hold it so it's not oversaturated, nothing will run in the tile. It's only excess water that makes it to the tile.
Sure.
So I don't know. It's a big, complicated issue that I know I am not professionally adept to talk about necessarily, but it's just like going back to the other, we've changed the flow of the river. We've taken out floodplains. Of course there's more getting down there. But like, is it agriculture? Yeah. Is it only agriculture? No, not a chance. No way. But we're on the hook. And that's where you're getting like with the PR standpoint.
Sure.
So once it rains and we start getting wet, you'll hear about the nitrogen removal plant firing up in Des Moines, and everybody's going to be these darn farmers.
Which, back to Peter Zeihan for a second, our favorite geopoliticist, which, do you know any other guys like Peter Zeihan, or is he kind of like one of a kind right now?
I don't. See, the reason he got in my opinion, the reason why he got so popular is like he called the Russian-Ukraine conflict
Like predicted it to the month,
basically,
which like blew my mind. But he's just looking at the political scene.
You looked at the demographics.
Yeah.
You look at Russia, which, talking again about something I have no business talking about, but Russia has been invaded like over 50 times in its history, and it's always came from 9 places.
9 points of entry into Russia.
Yes, because like on the west part of Russia, you have like what they call the Horde lands, and like that's where like the Mongols smoked everybody on horseback, you know, and
like Genghis Khan, like 900.
Yes. And you do not have, there's no way to block it. So like, think if there's a military conflict like in Iowa and Nebraska, what natural barrier is there to stop anybody?
The river.
The Raccoon River, which is
not
I don't want to
significant.
Yeah, I don't want to put all my eggs in that basket. And I mean, that's kind of what they're facing. And I mean, it no way absolves Russia for what they are doing, but it's hard to argue with the logic. And I argue strongly with the way that it's being gone about. I have a lot of problems with it. I know I'm not qualified to talk about it, but like you look at the pieces, the demographics, the economic situation, like the world that we're in, it's not that surprising. And Peter Zion said, hey, this is going to happen because by 2022, there will not be a younger Russian generation to fight off any kind of invasion. Their only hope to salvage what will be left of Russia is to control these points of entry, because with a smaller force, they can do that.
Blowing my mind a little bit, because essentially what you're saying, what Peter Zion has said, is that Russia, the population of Russia, how many people live in Russia? I don't know.
I will Google it.
But they've just been gutted.
They're aging out.
They are aging out.
They have more old people than young people.
They have more people in their 50s than they do in their 60s, more in their 40s than they do in their 50s, all the way down to there's more people in their 30s and then in their 20s. It's an inverted period. Sure. It's population collapse. The only population that's worse, I think, is China.
Which is another big deal, because it's kind of like the last rumblings, not that I'm a expert geopoliticist, but
I'm not either.
Listening to podcasts and listening to some news here and there, it's like China is the new superpower that we need to look out for.
Yeah, and I think that's a joke.
Because of their demographic, their aging out is inevitably going to happen, because they just don't have the young people, and they used to have the 1 child and 2 child policy. Mm-hmm. Now you can have as many kids as you want.
Yep.
Because they know that their population is declining.
See, yeah, and that's the other thing that like those countries know.
Yeah.
It's just somehow here in the United States, then that's where I argue like the political rhetoric really gets, who's being harder on the Chinese? They're going to take over. And it's just like, no, they're not. Like they are incapable of intercontinental war. If China wanted to go to war with us right now, they couldn't get here.
Right.
And it's just like, does that mean that like they're harmless? Absolutely not. But I mean, like, you got to look at it in the bigger scope.
Right.
And like the other thing that like I've heard too is like the aid that we've provided Ukraine, which I would argue strongly is very important, saying, well, we're gutting our military capacity. What if we have to fight a war with China? I'm like, well, you use the Navy if we have to fight in Ukraine, which I'm not saying that we should. I don't want to take all those pieces, throw that at it.
You're just putting the puzzle together.
Yeah, I'm saying that's an army thing.
It's an army.
That's not a Navy thing.
Correct.
So it's two total. Yeah, it's, I don't know. And like I'm grossly unqualified to talk about it, because I mean I listen to Peter Zion a lot just because the geopolitical thing is just absolutely fascinating. And I was listening to him way before Russia invaded Ukraine, but it's just so interesting, but it's scary.
He has a way of nonchalantly, casually putting really intense global situations together.
Yes.
And then he makes it sound like, yeah, this is happening, almost like he's talking about the NFL or just a local business, but he's talking about world powers and their eventual demise, or what they're going to be backed into in the corner. And so one thing that struck me is that we, as if we have a vested stake in a multi-complicated arena, such as the war of Russia and Ukraine, Russia getting whooped is not necessarily the best thing.
Oh, it's terrifying.
A threatened Russia backed against the wall, their last resort is...
They're still a nuclear power.
They are a nuclear power. They could launch a nuke when they want to. So we need them to be okay, but maybe not so aggressive.
See, and that's where it gets really scary and like almost like inhuman to look at it. So like part of the problem, once again, trying to strip politics away, which once again, I'm probably not qualified really to talk about. But the problem with what's going on is there's 9 gaps. Ukraine is not, they don't get Ukraine and say, okay, we're done. It's, what is it? You need Ukraine, Romania, Latvia, Lithuania, Belarus, Moldova, parts of Sweden.
So they're just going to keep right on going to shore up their border.
They have to.
And ensure
that's not a they have to. They think that they have to
feel safe.
To feel safe.
To preserve the Russian way of life. To preserve
or
Russia.
whatever's left. And the other weird thing about Russia is Russia's not so much a country as it is like an empire. Like there's a lot of different ethnic groups and stuff within Russia that don't get along, that don't like each other, that somebody's pulling strings to make sure they never really get it figured out. And from that standpoint, it's terrifying because once you get past Ukraine, I don't think Moldova is in NATO. Belarus is basically a satellite state as far as my understanding goes. Everybody else is in NATO. We are in NATO. That makes a conflict between the United States and Russia inevitable if they get through Ukraine.
Right.
So the best case scenario from the American perspective, in my opinion, is to make Ukraine like a meat grinder. And that is disgustingly horrible and like inhumane. When like the war first started,
basically, and what you mean by that is you mean like we're going to use up all of Russia's resources
in Ukraine,
so that they've got nothing left when in regards to people, food, energy like gasoline, vehicles, war machines.
Yeah, but energy-wise, they'll probably be okay because of their oil field and stuff.
They have a lot of self-sourced stuff.
Yes.
Yeah. And they don't rely on anyone else to refine it and then give it back to them.
Yeah, they actually rely a lot on like other countries that like they can't run their stuff themselves very well.
Right.
And my understanding of that is much looser, but I'm not so worried about them running out of energy like as far as oil. But it's just such a, I don't know, it's hard. When it first came out, like it got a lot of news, and somehow it's fallen out of the news, which like I have a hard time understanding. But like it upset me so much because like I'm 30, and like if something were to happen, like I'm in the age group that like would go and defend. And I don't know, that just really that really hit me. I guess it's upsetting because I mean they're up against a behemoth. Like at one point they were I don't remember what battle it was, but the Russian to Ukraine casualties was 8-1, 1 Ukrainian to 8 Russians, and Russia's like, oh man, we're gonna win in no time
because they're okay throwing bodies.
Yes, they always have. Like in World War I, they did not have enough guns. And so they sent men into battle without guns and said, okay, when somebody dies, you just pick up their gun. And like, they're okay with that.
Terrible.
It's just horrible.
I'm very excited for our friend Josh Dyer to come on. He's slated to come on in the next couple weeks and talk about some historical things. But here we are just diving right into it right here. But yeah, Russia, like they have a weird tradition or mentality going into war where they're okay throwing bodies at an issue, and that's a term Peter Zeihan has used. I've heard Josh say it. I've heard we've both said it, where it's just like we have a problem, we have a hole here, we're going to throw some bodies at it, and hopefully they plug up the hole. Like, and if 10 Russians die to 1 Ukrainian, but we win, then we won.
Yeah,
and somehow they're okay with that. Versus, I don't feel like that's necessarily the American way.
Oh, absolutely not. I mean, we don't have the population to do that, but the other thing too is like it's a totally different government too.
Yeah.
And part of the reason why they my understanding is the part of the reason where they got where they are at is actually because they did have so many like serfs and stuff like to work the ground because there was never any very good farming. So then all the farm, it'd be backbreaking labor. Mm-hmm. Somebody'd have as many kids as they can because it's free labor, and then they go and start their own and then so you had so many like that. And that's kind of like where their original population came from. But then with the industrialization or urbanization, everything tanked. It's like in 1990 or whatever, they like did some kind of like census, and there's like 11,000 ghost towns in Russia now because the government could the USSR fell, they could move. They weren't able to before, and they moved.
So if they were forced to be in a place they didn't want to be, they left. Mm-hmm. Just a wild existence over there. Mm-hmm. Just when you think about human nature and human rights, and people in other countries, not in America, have been born in a place where they've been captive from day one. And that just kind of blows my mind still. Like, not that we live in a fairyland over here, but
really close, I think.
It's a reasonable comparison to make because of how sheltered we are from realities of other countries like Russia. And I won't name any others just because out of reverence, I have brothers-in-laws too who spent time in the army, in the military. Mm-hmm. They could probably bring some accuracy to the things that they've seen, listening to podcasts, listening to Jocko or listening to Tim Kennedy or some of these guys. You learn a lot, you get glimpses, but you just don't know until you've been there. And they've been there. And today is Veterans Day, for crying out loud. Yep. Today is November 11th. Whenever this podcast gets out, it might be a couple days after that, but it's like, boy, today is a day which Memorial Day is when you remember those who have died.
Veteran Days for those who are here. So.
Yes. So thank you to those. This is your day, veterans. And I love it. I love talking about this stuff, but it's hard. I want to be tactful for those who have been there and have seen things. And it's like, hey, yeah, you guys are okay, but what do you know? You haven't been there.
Oh, yeah.
Well, we're trying to figure out. We're trying to wake up to reality. We're trying to be in tune with what real life is and not just live in this fairyland that's been created for us because...
Yeah, and
some context to the conversation anyway, but...
Yeah, well, and I think that we do live in a fairyland. We are like the first civilization like ever that's food secure. Like, we will not experience famine. And I mean, I'm not saying that it's impossible for there to be tough times, but we're spread out over, thousands and thousands of miles. Like, California can grow food, right? Iowa can grow food. Yeah. Nebraska can grow food, or at least most of it. Illinois, Ohio, Indiana, Minnesota, Wisconsin. We have some of the best farm ground in the world, to the point where we grow corn and soybeans because that's the best thing that we can grow. It's not the only thing that we can grow.
Right.
If like we had to, like countries like Egypt grow a lot of cotton because it makes more money, and then they import their wheat.
Sure.
Well, if stuff hits the fan, they're going to go back to growing wheat. But the problem is they won't be able to grow enough to sustain their population. And like that's not going to be an abnormal thing.
Crazy.
And hopefully it doesn't fall apart quite as hard or fast as what like Peter Zion said or has said, but he's not just making it up. Yeah. He'll say exactly why he thinks something.
Yeah.
And like, to me, it makes a lot of sense. He doesn't think China will last to 2030, like what we know it now.
And definitely not by by the end of the century.
Oh yeah.
Definitely not. Definitely not by the end of the century. But 2030, China is going to change.
That is so crazy.
By 2030, and like he might be wrong. There's a huge chance of that. He thought Ukraine was going to get rolled over, and they didn't. Yeah. And like, thank God they didn't.
Yeah.
But I don't know. You're looking into the future. Like you got to give. You don't actually know.
You don't actually know.
So. No.
It's remarkable. The game of Catan. I know, Lindsay, you're a gamer over there. Have you ever played Catan?
I have not. I have the game, and I think that it'd be a lot of fun because like I really like the like strategy type stuff. But like you got to group enough people together and have enough time.
Time and energy are both non-renewable resources.
Mm-hmm. We can play it at Friendsgiving.
Indeed, we've got some opportunity. Absolutely, yeah. But how remarkably realistic it is. It's Okay, it's a game, and there's only like 5 resources. You could probably rattle them off.
It's wheat, brick, wood, ore, and sheep.
There you go. And if you have those things, you have the framework to make a society, basically.
Right.
Like that's all you need. So like you're saying about Egypt, they're going to grow one thing and trade for another because they can make a whole lot of money and then supply something that someone else needs and just buy what you need.
Yep.
And it's easier that way.
Yeah. Well, and it's the world that the United States created, for better or worse. I would argue is for the better. It was back to Russia. It was made that way to deal with USSR.
Sure. Yeah.
Because I mean the red wave or whatever they called it. I'm sure Josh would be able to talk. Oh, yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Would be able to talk a lot better about it. But like General Patton, after they defeated Germany, said, "Why aren't we rolling to Moscow?" And like I don't know. It's just it's a crazy deal. Like you were talking about what you need, like a country or a nation or whatever. You have to have a government. You got to be food secure. You have to have water. You have to be able to defend your borders. That's what you need.
Yeah.
Any country that can't do those 4 things is not a country.
Yeah. You need a big brother.
Last
you need a big brother to
to
take over. So we're food secure, but the world.
Energy, not water. Probably. I mean, water's important too, but I think in the list was energy, because if you don't have oil, modern life is gone.
Yes. Coal, I think is coal one of them on the.
That was the ore.
Ore, yes, right on. Yep. That there is a global, because of globalization, because some of those third world countries have been brought up a notch.
Yep.
And now they're trading, and now they can buy things. They can get things from America or from other places that make things because they can buy them. Now they're consuming things, and they're using energy, and they're using food, and they're trying to become successful, but there's a cost to that. There's an opportunity cost to everything.
Yep.
For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. Mm-hmm. That's a law of science. So there's a food crisis. Like there's literally places that can't get enough food to feed all the people they have now because of globalization post World War II.
See, and the other way to look at that is there's not truly been a famine where people legitimately starve without bad management, like Venezuela. It's totally fallen apart. In the world that we currently live in, now what Peter Zion's talking about is that's going to go away, because you look at, you need nitrates, phosphates, and potash. Or whatever.
Fertilizer.
Yes. Fertilizer.
Yeah. Where does fertilizer come from? Anybody know?
China, Russia.
Canada.
And United States probably good. There's a lot of phosphate. I think it's phosphates.
Yeah.
Israel and an African country that I'm not going to be able to spit the name out. It's not even a hard one. I just can't remember which one. So like the United States, we're good.
We've been buying fertilizer.
Yes. And we will still have access to it.
But if Russia stops making fertilizer because some collapse there, then somebody in the world is going without fertilizer. Somebody in the world will not be able to grow food like they were growing food before.
And the Middle East imports most of their wheat from Russia, and like the 3rd highest one is Ukraine.
Somebody's going hungry somewhere.
Like famine, like awful, horrible, something that we haven't seen in this century.
So to bring this back full circle to Iowa living is nitrates in the water, this hypoxia zone in the Gulf. Just stop farming. We can't.
No.
We never can.
And you know why we talk about these things? It's because we are not worried where our next meal is coming from.
Sure.
And that's also why it has been so important to bring up some of these like third world countries. If you don't know if you're going to live tomorrow, do you really care if your carbon emissions? No. If you start living a good enough life that you're looking toward the future, then you can care.
Yeah.
If you're not there, you don't care.
Right.
And like
wild.
When I was down in Peru on that trip, it was like right before. Well, I left before COVID. I came back. There's no toilet paper. So like that is the world that like I entered and exit, and I'm like, who hit the panic button? But we went. I think the town was Agua Caliente. We were actually on our way to Machu Picchu.
Hot water.
Yes. It It was like on a Sunday or something. Pretty much what it was not guaranteed. We did not go down there to see Machu Picchu, but we were close enough, and there was nothing scheduled that it did not make sense not to see like a World Heritage site.
Right. Incans? Aztec.
Incans.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So we stayed the night in a town, Agua Caliente, and it was awful. Mary Harrington, anyway, she just got married to Ben Dixon, I think. She was in like this little group that I was in before getting to Agua Caliente. Cuscus. I can't remember the town. There's a huge cathedral that you would not expect to see, but like, the conquistadors, and like it was beautiful. Walking down like Inca streets that were like better than some of our streets
that are 500 years, 600 years old.
Yeah, but to be fair, I mean, foot traffic's a lot different than modern vehicles,
cars.
But so we ate at this like cafe, like looking out over the cathedral and stuff. And there was a couple other people with us, but I knew that you probably knew of Mary. And then went to the street corner to this woman who was selling tamales that had supposedly, she was like 100 years old, supposedly. I mean, like, who's going to fact check that? But she looked like was probably over 100 years old. So like had some of those. And then we got on this bus, and I get car sick really bad. It was awful. I did get sick, and like, so then
on the bus,
yeah, we had to pull over. It was a whole thing.
Did you make it
super embarrassing? No, I had a bag, like a grocery bag. It was so bad. But the other thing too is like, if you get car sick, like you get sick, and it's not like, oh, I feel better. It's just like, no, I still feel sick. And they're going up this mountain and just whining and turning, and on a bus, and like, the gal up front's talking about like all the history, and I would have been super interested in it, but I have my eyes shut. Don't throw up again, because he already did. But anyway, so that part was it went from like I was here, and then I was here, and then but anyways, that's a long drawn out version to that night. We ate at the only restaurant there, and like we had like a traditional Peruvian meal. Ooh. Not like a restaurant that you go to, like, this is a poor country. Had guinea pig.
Okay.
There's not enough negative stars to talk about guinea pig.
Oofta.
I'm sure.
Greasy, gross, and like my stomach was screwed up. Anyways, and like, but I mean, that's what there was to eat. So you ate, and like I tried again. No, maybe not again. I would not like undo what I did, because like I feel like that's part of it,
Yeah.
And then it was somebody's birthday in our group, and so we bought, like, it's the only place in the world you can get this drink, and
oh boy,
it may have been gasoline. I don't know. It was also really bad, and once again, like, my stomach was just like grumpy. Anyways, that part was not so good. But now to the relevant part of the story. We were walking back to where we were staying and stopped at a little shop, like a convenience store type deal, to buy some water. The guy I was with bought big pack, gave him $5 US dollars, because they'll take US dollars because it's better than the Peruvian peso. And the guy just started shaking his head, and no, and handed it back. And like, what? And we finally were able to piece out. Like, he couldn't give change. And like, oh, okay, well, no big deal. Like, here, we'll give like exact change. And we're walking back, and we're like, he didn't have enough money to make change for a $5 bill. And it's just like, whoa.
That's the level of poverty.
That's the level of poverty.
Yeah.
And like, I was able to go to Port-au-Prince, Haiti in like 2011 or something, or 12 maybe. I had raised money for Soy Cow, is what it's called. And pretty much what it does is it helps you make soy milk. So this was after the big earthquake in Haiti. I started a deal that I called RUSH, Relieving Undernourishment with Soy in Haiti, because then I made a nice acronym, RUSH, and gave that money to Wish, which the acronym's World Initiative for Soy and Human Health. And that all stems from my grandpa being involved in the Soybean Association and stuff. And so like I raised like $2,300 or something like that. It was enough for one soy cow. And I was contacted then by Wish saying like, hey, do you want to like go and see where it's going to be? And like they had enough, I can't remember if it was 3 or 4, but so I was lucky enough to go down there and like see where it was. And like that, I remember we stayed in the nicest like 5-star hotel in Port-au-Prince. And at the time, like I felt garbage about it because we'd go out on the streets and like there's cement walls where they put glass in the top and broke it off so you can't climb over. Just like extreme poverty. And like here I am in this really nice hotel. I remember like eating one night and like dessert and it's just like, no, I can't eat. I mean, Haiti's not even that far away, but I mean, it's just totally decimated. And it got decimated by like the earthquake too. Like I brought back like a piece of rubble from the earthquake. And the places that we put a soy cow was an all-girls school with the idea of women primarily make the meals. Let's teach them about nutrition to try to curb malnutrition. Mm-hmm. An elderly home for people who couldn't afford it, and then an orphanage for special needs children. And
tears your heart out.
Oh man, like the videos and like pictures that like you see like that you associate with Africa, and like there's this this little boy like in a crib and like just like stereotypical like what you think of, and like didn't have the energy to swat flies from his eyes. But yeah, so it was a great experience to understand and see. But like it was hard. Like I couldn't eat.
Didn't want to.
No.
Not at that point.
And like I felt horrible staying like in the nicest place. Mm-hmm. But like now, like looking back with like actually thinking about it, like we weren't there because we wanted to be in a nice place. Like there's armed guards with shotguns on the walls.
You were there.
It was there for a reason. Yeah.
Hoofda. When you take a place like that that has no goods, no thing of itself to mm-hmm. trade with, then you've got a country that's the stage is set to be poor and poor forever, unless you've got a big brother who is willing to come along and be like, hey, well, we're going to trade with you. We're going to give you stuff. We're going to protect you. We're going to mm-hmm. feed you. We're going to make sure that, a corrupt government doesn't come in and take everything that you.
Yeah, and I think that's something else we take really for granted. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say, our government's not corrupt. Because, I mean, like, I'm sorry. Like, I don't know. I wish I was that naive and stuff. But
there's a great joke about that. Like, all the conspiracy theories that have ever occurred. This comedian's like, you think our government's just batting 1,000 on telling the truth about all these things?
I saw that video. Like, it was awesome.
And the way he delivers it is just priceless. Like, yes, our government has been involved with some shady things.
Yep.
Okay, but we're here now. And so you're saying...
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's different. And I mean, they're to a certain degree, they're a product of imperialism. Like, they were a French colony.
Haiti.
Yep. Yeah. Yep. And like I was just listening to something the other day. It was talking about Haiti, and like the staple in Haiti's diet is American rice. They can't grow enough.
Sure.
They can buy our rice cheaper than what they can plant it for because of the fertilizer requirements.
Crazy.
And it's I don't know, it's a crazy world. I hope Peter Zion's wrong, like in a lot of that stuff, but I'm fearful that he's not. But I guess the silver lining of it is like America's going to do great.
Yeah.
In that said world, assuming nothing crazy happens, like nukes, right. type of thing.
Right.
But I mean, we're energy secure, we're food secure. where I mean it's unfair
yeah,
to a large degree.
Yeah. It's a heck of a place to be. I understand why people don't like us, and I understand why people want to come here. Want to risk their lives to come here because just you have an opportunity to just live like a human.
Yep.
With basic amenities, just not even a thought in your head.
Yep.
Need some, just run up Hy-Vee. It's right there, fairway. We have the infrastructure, we have the system to get what's needed for us in our daily lives in our household to be at our beck and call, just in exchange for money.
Yep.
Fascinating. Incredible. It is incredible. There's this one Instagram that I just found, and I almost need to find it because he talked about, his tagline is "Normalize the norm," and his videos are all about his daily life from 9 to 5. He's living the 9 to 5, and his message is kind of like, just embrace it. Just embrace it. Like this 9 to 5, put in some good hard work, 8 hours, get your paycheck, and then live your life on the side, basically, is what he's saying. Versus the other message that you hear a lot of entrepreneurs say is, forget that 9 to 5 stuff. Like, if you want to do that for a little while, make as much money as you can, and then start your own business. Be your own person. Be your own man. Make sure you get out of the system. Get out of the rat race. And this guy, he's saying, like, listen, like, some of us are going to be in the rat race. Like, this whole America industry, like, yes, we need some 9 to 5ers. And I'm like, wow. There's a perspective I haven't heard in a while. Like, hey, just relax about your 9 to 5 job. Just enjoy it, for crying out loud, while you can. Instead of hating your life, punching numbers, or doing ever what you're doing, just find a way to enjoy where you're at right now. So I like that. But yet at the same time, I'm like, well, don't just settle there.
Yeah, see, and that's
like, what a life to just go 9 to 5 from 20 to 18, 19, 20, 21, 22 until you're 65, retire. And you really, I mean,
see, but there's also nothing wrong with that either.
There's nothing wrong.
You got to live there too. Like, I don't know. I totally understand what you're saying. Because, like, entrepreneurial, like, oh, well, you need to be reading these books and, like, start your own side business, and then that business needs to take over and encompass your full business. Or there's, like, you don't need to do anything. Like, where's this middle ground?
Where's the middle ground?
And it's just, like, gone, and it's kind of ridiculous. So
it took me back seeing this.
Yeah.
Seeing this viewpoint, just this other side of things. Like, hey, you know what? The majority of people actually, your influencers, that influencer life, that's a very small percentage of people doing that and making a living off of it, sort of a thing, which, I don't know. I don't know. Because something makes you tick. Something makes you tick. Something makes me tick, and it might not be your 9 to 5. So you have to find a way to nurture and grow that, I feel like.
Yep.
While you're here. I mean, you were made with a purpose and a reason, and what you like for a reason. So if you just ignore that and all you do is watch shows at night and go to work during the day and don't do anything else, like I feel like that's injustice to why you're here.
Yep.
I think a lot of people have forgotten about hobbies.
Yes.
And hobbies are a big deal.
They are.
Like, your hobby doesn't have to become what you do for work.
No.
Because then it's not a hobby anymore.
Then sucks and sometimes
the joy out. It can suck the joy out of it. And some people, like these people who have really successful Etsy shops, they'll like crochet little animals. Okay. Yep. They just enjoyed doing it, decided to sell some. Well, then it exploded, and now they have like 5 other crocheters that do it with them. And like, is that fun for them anymore? Maybe, but like, maybe it's not.
Right.
And they had to find a different hobby to cope with the job of now crocheting all these tiny animals.
Yeah, they don't even crochet anymore.
Right,
imagine
because
that.
they like don't like it.
Yeah, because they have to.
Right.
They have to meet a quota every day.
Right, but like social media would be like, whatever you like in your hobby, turn that into a business. And like, I see the value in that.
Yeah, there's like nothing wrong with that. But it's not for everybody.
Right. I have a friend who makes all of his money playing video games on YouTube. Like, that's what he does for a living, and he makes way more money than I do.
He's in the minority.
And I'm like, shout out Taylor. But
I hope he continues to like playing video games. Imagine the day it doesn't become fun anymore.
Right.
And he has to do it, and he doesn't want to.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you were saying Instagram. I don't really do very much on Instagram at all, except I found a well, from a podcast, I guess. I follow like it's Indiana Stones is what he does.
That's funny. I like the play on words.
Yeah. It's a guy in Ireland, and he finds historic lifting stones and lifts them.
You're into this, aren't you?
Oh my gosh, I am absolutely fascinated.
You want to lift some stones?
I want to lift some stones, man. Historic stones, not just your average field rock, you know.
Sure.
I was gonna say my parents have some big rocks.
Yeah, no, I got some rock piles too at home. But part of the reason like that's so interesting to me is like the cultural and stuff significant. Like Vikings like did this, Lindsay. Like it was.
Yeah, they did.
It's a thing.
It's cool. Mm-hmm. So Decorah has Nordic Fest.
Yep.
They have a rock throwing competition.
Oh, they do not?
They do.
When is it? It probably already
July.
happened. Oh, it's in July?
Yeah.
I figured it'd be in fall. Everything fun's in fall when I can't do it.
We should go. We went with the Dyers. It was super fun.
Oh, we
went to the wrong end of the festival and we ended up missing it because I wanted to watch.
Oh, no.
And I think, so they probably have like a historical rock that they used to use for this. Now they use like medicine ball sandbags.
Oh,
so they're all exactly the same weight.
Yeah.
And like multiple people can throw at once.
Yeah.
But the rock thing is so cool.
No, I think the rock thing is so incredibly cool. So like Ireland has them, Iceland has them, Scotland had like the Dinny Stones like are famous and stuff. And like a lot of every rock like has a story and like they are heavy, like 200-300 pounds. And one of my favorites, can't remember what the rock's called. If I remember like right, oh man, I'm pretty sure it's in Scotland, not Ireland or Iceland. But the story goes like a farmer made a deal with the devil for whatever reason. I don't know the details on it, but he's like confined to hell until somebody carries this stone 100 times around his grave.
Oh boy.
There's been like 45 documented cases of actually like carrying it around.
Holy smokes.
And like, I don't know, it was fascinating.
You want to be the guy to put him over the top.
Oh yeah, or at least contribute.
How heavy is it?
Do you know?
Oh, it I don't know, like 200-300 pounds. Everything's in kilos. That's the downside with stone lifting is everything's in kilos.
Right.
But no, it's awesome. I mean, they did it as a way to like if you could lift heavy things, like you could provide more for your family. Like if you were going on a fishing boat, like they had these stones. If you lift this, you get a half a share. If you lift this, you get like a full share. And like Iceland, I think it's like Foldsirker or full. I'm probably saying it wrong, but like it's a whole thing. And like there's a lot like in Scotland has a lot of them. Ireland's just kind of like finding them. The guy who Indiana Stones, who's like reading this like short story on this stone like that somebody lifted, and he's like, there's no way that's not made up. That's real. That is way too specific. And so like he just followed the instructions like from the story and like found it and was like the first person to lift it in over 100 years. And like some of these stones haven't been lifted like in hundreds of years because it was stifled because of Great Britain, and like you kind of got to squash out the culture and stuff when you go to take someone over. And no, to me it's just absolutely fascinating. There's a guy in Utah who has like the Utah Stones of Strength, which he's done a lot of these historic stones, and like the continental U.S. doesn't have anything like that, so he tried to create something like that. And no, I'm all about it. Lauren doesn't get it. I don't blame her for not getting it. But like once you get it, then it's just like, okay, you got cultural significance. You have like a rite of passage, which I feel like we do not have that we desperately need for young men.
Sure.
And like,
are you Irish?
I'm pretty English.
Okay.
Supposedly I have a little Irish, a little Scottish, but mainly English. Really boring.
We could like make a Danish lifting stone, and then you guys
I think
can just
that we
participate.
should. I think Greene County needs its own Stones of Strength.
That's super fun.
That's the problem with Greene County is that there is no dominant ethnicity that exists here.
Right. We don't have a culture.
It is a true melting pot, and it's been that way since 1900. And again, when you look at the history and you put the puzzle pieces together, it was a migration town.
Yep.
The highest population of Greene County was in the year 1900.
Yep.
That was when the population peaked, and it's fallen ever since.
Crazy.
It is. You'd think that everything gets bigger and better with age, and it does not in our case, you know. And so people came here and left. And what's left is just this crazy little melting pot of stuff. But even in other towns along Highway 30 or in Decorah, there's a dominant ethnicity or at least culture of ethnicity.
Right.
Versus
they're mostly Norwegian up there.
See, and there's a lot of benefit to that because then there's a rallying deal. And like that's became a tourist
it's a huge deal.
thing. I mean, you know, but since there isn't anything like that, like I'd love to be able like to put on like a Highland Games because like that's it'd be so much awesome. And then I have Scottish Highland cattle.
Decorah and just
get some ideas and then bring them back here. Because I mean, there's like a line in a poem that's like the fascination with what is difficult, and like for me, a lot of that nails me to the teeth. Like in a lot of ways, like. No one just like, oh man, lifting that rock would be really cool. It's like no one does that. But I'm like, man, that is so heavy and like you have to be strong. That's hard. I want to do it.
Right. That'd be an accomplishment.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like next week, my brother-in-law Taylor is doing like his 3rd or 4th or something like that, 100-mile race. And like I think that is so cool, but like not my build, not my body type. I can't play in that pond.
You can lift stones.
I might be able to lift stones, but I can't run 100 miles. But like that is just so cool to me because it's something hard. Like I don't know, we don't have enough hard things or don't give enough credit for that type of thing, in my opinion. Because like I played football, love playing football. It was hard. Then you're done. Like you can't be like, hey, I want to go just like play some football, put some pads on, and like try not to kill each other. Like you don't do that. You can play a pickup game of basketball. You can play baseball. It's hard to get enough people, but first of all, you need 22 people at least, and then like you can't do it. Then it's just done.
How about 7 on 7? 7 on 7.
Yeah, it'd be all right, but like
you still have to get 14 people.
You still have to get 14 people.
Bell Tower Festival. It was our short list of new things to install in the festival. It's a 7 on 7 tournament.
See fun. that might be fun. Yep. That might be fun. I liked hitting people though, and like frowned upon in society.
So apparently, it is frowned upon, especially in
and like for good reason. But I mean, there's a lot of merit to it. You know, I don't know. It's
fun.
It's fun. It's hard.
Honestly. Yeah. I grew up wrestling and playing football with my boy cousins, and it was fun to take them out.
It's so much fun. And like, you know, like I've been smoked plenty of times too. And it's just like, I don't know. It's like to test yourself, you know?
Yeah. The point of playing football is not to score touchdowns. The point of playing football is because of what it does for you, who you become in the process. Like,
yeah.
You get to the NFL, the point of playing football is to make a whole lot of money really fast or to be famous.
Yeah.
But like when you talk about high school, and I heard Aaron Thomas speak. Aaron Thomas, the son of Ed Thomas, who was a football coach in Appleton, Parkersburg, who he was tragically killed. And so his son is a motivational leadership speaker. And he came to a class that I was taking here through the Iowa State Extension and Outreach Office. And Aaron Thomas talked about his dad, and his dad's primary focus was about shaping men, building men for society. Like that was the point of football to him. That was the point of being a coach, being in the school system, was to mold these men into significant human beings. And 2 state titles, I think 4 kids from it's a town of 2,000 people, Parkersburg is, Appleton is. And 4 kids from Iowa, that high school, have been to the NFL since under Ed Thomas's regime of coaching. So I like that. And here you are expressing depth.
We need that.
You need depth.
Yeah.
The rites of passage are important just because it proves to you who you are and what you're made of, and that all of us have the potential to stand up and be strong and not just be bowled over by life.
Yeah.
And the stresses and the other people who want to assert their will. Yeah.
Well, and then there's also no guarantee that you would complete it necessarily either. There's no safety.
Sure.
And I mean, there's no safety in life. We have a lot of safety nets, but I mean, I think that's important. It's something that we don't have. And I feel like if there was something that we had, I think we'd be better off for it.
Sure.
Because like you were talking about, like it's not about winning games. The most fun I ever had in high school playing football, we lost.
Sure.
In the last like 2 seconds.
Crazy.
And like I look back, like even after I got done playing the game, I'm like I'm upset we lost. I didn't like losing, but I'm like, I had fun. I felt like I did everything that I could and that I did well. And like football is a team sport, like not to like mitigate that, but I'm like talking from a personal perspective. Like it was an awesome game.
I think that's important too, is win or lose or tie, if you tie, for crying out loud, but to know that you gave it your all and to fail is okay.
Yes.
That's okay at that point, especially in competition. It's like a precursor for life. It's like, hey, practice giving your all and see how far you can go. Mm-hmm. And then go find an area to do that in real life and see how far you can go there too.
Yes. Yeah. No, I don't know. I feel like it's lacking. I hope I can do something right, I guess, with my boys to try to instill, like, I don't know why I am the way that I am. You know, like I said, what rational person watches somebody lift up a heavy rock and think, you know what, that's for me? Like,
you and
especially
my
kind of
husband.
stupid, but
heavy things, let's move them.
Yeah, and I don't know, and it's not just like physical strength; it's just like doing something difficult, that has merit to, like, I don't know. It's that's my right now. That's what I'm about. I think it's awesome. I want to go and do it. I want to figure out how to train for it, get stronger for it, and do it.
I will graduate from UX UI design school in this like spring, and my school's in Ireland. We could go group trip.
I've been to Dublin. So Lauren studied abroad in Harlexton Manor was the place. It was a freaking castle. It was awesome. Cannot remember the town. I can't spit it out. But I went and visited her, and so I got off the plane. And then we went and got on in London, and then got on another plane and went to Dublin, which I do not recommend. If you're going to Dublin, fly to Dublin. don't
fly to
stop.
London first.
And that part was awful. I didn't sleep the entire time. But no, I've been to Dublin and thought it was just absolutely awesome, fascinating, cool. We went to like Wicklow, Glendalough National Park, just absolutely beautiful. Just different kind of beautiful. Everything's green. It was amazing. Would go again.
Mm-hmm.
But definitely, gonna have to go to Scotland and Iceland too for the stones.
Yeah.
Sounds like a good hobby, man.
Yeah.
No? Gotta have something to do outside
Gotta have something to do.
What does Skyler like to do? Lift really heavy
picking up
rocks.
There's an icebreaker.
Yeah.
What's your fun fact?
Yeah. But yeah, that's what I'm about right now. I think it's cool. Cultural significance, historical significance. It's all about it.
You've given enough content to for 2 podcasts, and to prove that I think you will be a repeat.
Oh, I'd
guest.
love to.
But
I've been watching your podcast for a while, and like I won't claim like I've seen like every one, but like it's fascinating. I don't think I'm super interesting, so let me preface with that. But the people like that you bring on, like, I mean, it's really interesting. Like, I mean, you wouldn't ever have that conversation like with that person, probably, especially if you don't know them. You can't just go up to them like, hey, like, do you want to tell me like some of the most important things about your life? Be like, okay, no, weirdo. Right, but it's a really cool deal. I like that you're doing it, and I'm fortunate that you think I'm interesting enough. And so
dude, man,
you're a cool deal.
You're silly. You're so silly. Not you're married, 2 kids, having another kid, the parenting journey. You farm. You like listening to podcasts. You like lifting stones. You have bees.
Bees and Highland cows.
You have Highland cows just because you wanted them.
The Scottish.
The Scottish.
That's not why.
Next podcast, only Scottish accents. That was a little Tommy Shelby right there. That was good. He's not Scottish though. He's English.
Yeah.
Shoot. Sorry, Tommy.
Shoot.
You have pigs. You have a nursery.
Yep.
And you have big pigs.
Venture barn. Yeah.
Did we mention you have bees too? Bees
and more importantly, I have not been stung.
Wow.
Which just shows you how long I've been beekeeping.
A whole season.
Is it not very long?
One season.
One season. Sure.
One season.
I will say the honey that you guys gave us, delicious.
It was really good, wasn't it?
It's so good.
See,
I still have some. It's like half
so
left. It's so good.
It's because it's not dehydrated properly, I think. So like for honey to store like long term, it needs to be like 18% or something like that. And I don't have a new way of testing mine, but the bees will cap it to store it. And all the honey that I got, not all of it was capped, so I know that it wasn't. But I feel like that honey tastes better than other.
It was good.
I sell robotic mowers too. That's the only other thing that I got.
Jeez, man.
So jack of all trades, master of none, man.
There's more to that quote.
I was going to say, we had this conversation.
Do you remember what it is?
You're going to give me 1 second to
I'll give you a
fact check
second. Last question for you is, are
Go for
you watching or reading or listening anything that is of interest to you right now?
Yes. I commute like 40 minutes from where I live to where the farming operation is.
This is an interesting part too, is you commute 40 minutes, you never leave the county. It still blows my mind.
Yeah,
Anyway.
There was something went wrong. Came back to family farm. How about a 40-minute commute?
Right.
Which no, I love where I'm at and where I'm going and that stuff.
Yes. A lot of truck time.
A lot of truck time, hog chores, good day, can get out of there really pretty quick, like hour and a half. Bad day, a lot more than that.
Sure.
3 is probably a pretty good average to aim at.
Sure.
So I get a lot of time to listen. I love reading. Don't have time to read. I get home, boys, just life, and then I get tired at night. Then I go to sleep.
Right.
So I listen to a lot of podcasts. I listen to a lot of like The Art of Manliness, which like almost sounds like a cliche, but like Brett McKay does like an amazing job getting like interesting people on and stuff, and that fuels a lot of the other stuff. I guess recently what I've really been into is Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life. And I know that Jordan Peterson comes with some like assumptions that people may or may not like him, but I would say you ought to read the book. Like you're getting the just what blows up. It's not really him. Like, especially if you listen to him, like I kind of thought like I knew what he thinks and stuff, but the more you listen to him, it's like, no, that's it's not saying that's not all of, I don't know. It's just not the full truth, I guess is what I'd say. But listening to that book, I'm listening to it for the second time. I'd really like to just read it because I feel like I retain a lot more. But I'm all about that. And then Man's Search for Meaning is a book that I've read here in the past couple of years that it just really, it's
right on.
It's incredible. It's worth the read. For those that don't know, it's written by a Holocaust survivor. He is a psychiatrist, and he talks a lot about logotherapy. Like that was his like theory. No, it's just absolutely incredible. I actually like was flipping through it just last night. I was tired, but not tired enough to go to sleep. Couldn't start something, couldn't do, you know what I mean? So I was flipping through that, and like, I reread the part where it said like, what is like Man's Search for Meaning is the title of the book. I had a dog mark or eared or whatever. I was rereading it, and he said like, they answered this question like is, in a way he said it's almost a stupid question, because what's the best move in chess? Depends on your situation, what's going on. Sure. So there is no best move. So it's different for everybody, which is kind of like a cliche, but he like reframes it to like, maybe the more important question is that you are asking the question. So answer it by the way that you live is kind of like what he gets into. And like he words it a lot better. That's on like horrible paraphrasing and stuff. But the other thing that he talks about a lot is like, you can find your own joy. Like he was able to find joy in a concentration camp. You cannot take.
Is this Viktor Frankl?
Yes.
Yeah.
You cannot take somebody's freedom entirely away, no matter what. He talked about like he'd have conversations with his wife in his head, who he did not know, but went straight to the gas chambers, if I remember right. And like he was able to walk away from it, worst thing ever. And he walked away from it and was able to live a productive life and didn't like let that like baggage him down. So I look at when I have stuff go wrong or bad, it's just like, wow, I am just being such a whiny complainer. I've never had any, can't even imagine what would have to go wrong to face any kind of trials that are comparable to that, or like what's happening to Ukraine, or to live like in a third world country where like you don't know where your food's coming from. You're afraid somebody's going to come in the night. I mean, what a whiny, complainy deal to complain about my 40-minute commute, which I do often. Don't get me wrong. But no, those are that's kind of what I'm into a lot. I found a stone lifting podcast, so that's pretty cool. Pretty cool.
You're loaded, man. You're
yeah.
loaded with depth. Yep.
I try.
I love it. You know, yeah. The whole point of this podcast was a search for depth, a search for the meaningful conversations that you don't get to have in the day-to-day, the stuff that gets lost. So happy you were here. Happy you lent your voice. Happy to get to know you a little better, and looking forward to the next time. Already.
Awesome. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate
I am going to leave you with the full quote, though.
Yes, thanks for not forgetting.
A jack of all trades is a master of none, but oftentimes better than a master of one.
There you go.
Yes, sir.
So
that's me.
Yeah,
not
remember
necessarily
that.
because I'm good. It's just like I open too many things all at the same time. And I don't have
For sure.
time.
Do you have that outro music over there? It's on sound panel 2. And then hit the bottom right button. Nope, that's not it. But I like it. That's okay. That was good. I like the music on it. There it is. That's the outro music. Good to have it back. Oh, I like it. Feels good. Okay, that's a wrap. Catch you later. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Adios.